Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. Returning listeners, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. So today, we're going to give you a framework in which you can filter criticism, because it's important not to just dismiss criticism, even if you don't like the person it comes from, if you don't like the way it was delivered, because some criticism is valid and it can point out things in your life where you're not performing the way you want to perform and can help you get better. And some criticism doesn't really mean anything and you should just ignore it. But we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about how to filter it and try to figure out what is good criticism that you should listen to and consider, and what is just personal attacks, hate, whatever you want to call it. It's just trash, and you don't need to listen to it, and you can just move on with your life. So with that, let's jump into it. So don't care what people think, right? Don't listen to what people think about you. That's advice that you get. I've given that advice, and for the most part, I think it's good advice. However, it's not good advice in every instance. Ignoring things that you need to work on simply because you don't like the person who told you the criticism, or you don't like the way the criticism was told you, it's not going to help you move forward as a person. Some criticism is very valid and is useful, and you need to listen to it and consider it. Some is trash. If you ignore everything, you're going to stop growing as a person. You're going to stop working on the things that you're not performing at the level you want to be performing at, and it's going to cost you in the long run. Now, if you absorb everything, you become fragile and anxious, and you worry too much what everybody's thinking of you. And so you've got to find a balance between those two places where you can learn to accept criticism, not take it personal, figure out how you're going to work on that thing and work on it. That's the skill. How do you filter criticism? How do you separate useful feedback from emotional noise? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to give you a filter by which you can do that in your personal and professional lives. Okay. So tip number one here is you've got to separate the message from the tone. Most people reject criticism not because of what is said, but because of how it is said. They don't like how it's delivered. But truth isn't always polite or easy to hear or pretty. Research in cognitive psychology shows that we instinctively defend our ego when we feel attacked. It's a reaction tied to threat processing in the brain, like we talk about all the time. It activates your amygdala. It feels like a fight or flight situation, so you respond with a fight or flight response, and you wind up letting your emotions rule that conversation instead of engaging your prefrontal cortex and thinking through the challenge. When the tone triggers that emotion, we stop evaluating or listening to the content of what they say. Barack Obama was a master at this. He could say anything to anyone because his tone was so measured and he was such a good speaker. Most people didn't hear what he said. They just were reassured by the way he said it. And so they didn't listen to him. They just said, oh, it's going to be all right because this guy's in control. This guy's smooth. This guy's got it. And smart guy. Like, he's a great communicator. One of the best politicians of my lifetime for sure. But it's a great example of what it looks like to deliver things that people may not want to hear in a way that, you know, he got by with most of that stuff. But the mistake here is confusing the delivery, the tone, with the accuracy of the message. And we can't do that. A rude jerk can still be right in their criticism, and a nice person can still be wrong when they're trying to defend you. So the action step here is when you've got to think, when you hear criticism, if this were said calmly by someone that I respect, would I still consider it? If the answer is yes, there's probably a kernel of truth to it in there somewhere. It probably deserves some examination. If the answer is no, it's probably just noise and you can move on. So ask yourself that question. If somebody I respected said this in a calm, rational way, would I consider it then? The answer is yes. You got some work to do. You got some things to think about. Tip number two here is to look for patterns, not one-off opinions. One person criticizing you might be them projecting. It might be them that had a bad experience and a similar experience to what you're going through, and they could be projecting those feelings or experiences onto you. 5 people saying the same thing probably has some merit. You know, my mom used to say, if everyone says you're a jerk, but you don't think you're a jerk, then you're a jerk. Like, if everyone else is receiving it in a similar way, then you've got to look at how you're delivering the message. And that's just one example, but it's the same thing anywhere. If one person takes a shot at you, I don't know. Should you worry about it? Probably not. If 5 people say the same or something very similar things to you, then you probably have some work to do around that particular area. But behavioral research shows that humans are terrible at self-assessment. We're not very good about knowing how we are or how we're perceived by others in most instances. We consistently rate ourselves more favorably than others do, which is self-serving bias. It's everybody does it. It's not a character flaw. Literally every human being alive thinks that way about themselves. Patterns of feedback can help you correct that blind spot. It can help you notice things that you don't notice, but lots of other people have, and they're giving you feedback on it. So if multiple unrelated sources point to the same issue, whether it's your communication style, whether it's your relatability, maybe it's your attitude, maybe it's your listening skills. If more than one, 2, 3, 4 people are telling you the same thing, they're not connected. It's not a group of people saying, yeah, I agree with that. But you get that feedback from multiple sources, the odds are high that there's some truth there. And it's a place you got to do some digging and probably do some work. So the action step here is to keep a mental log. Where have I heard this criticism before? How often have I heard this criticism before? If it's from multiple sources and you hear it fairly frequently, there's probably truth to it. If it repeats, investigate it. If it's random, treat it cautiously, but you can probably move on. So that's another good way to filter criticism to see if it's valid or if it's something you don't need to worry about. Tip number 3, examine the source. Not all critics are equal. You should not weigh the opinion of someone living a chaotic, bitter life the same as someone who is disciplined and grounded. I use myself and Elon Musk as the example. So if you wanted business advice, if you wanted to understand how to be successful in business, I would listen to Elon Musk. He's been wildly successful at multiple ventures. He's done a great job of that. If you want relationship advice, you should listen to me. I've been married to the same awesome woman for 30 plus years. We raised 3 kids together. Elon Musk has I can't even keep track of it now. 13 kids with 8 women, whatever it is. That's probably not where you want to get your relationship advice. But people will associate success in one area with success in all areas in some instances. So social learning behavior shows we model behavior from people we perceive as credible or successful. So if someone's a good actor, does that make him a good wife or husband? Not necessarily. Makes him a good actor. Someone's a good business person, does it make him, same thing, good father or mother? Not necessarily. Makes him a good business person. Your brain already ranks the sources, but you have to use that consciously. So ask yourself, does this person want me to improve? Are they actually trying to help me? Do they live in a way that I respect? Do I care what they think on this subject? Because the way they handle this subject is the way I would like to handle this subject. Are they emotionally stable? Maybe it's just someone that's freaking out. You don't need to listen to that. Or are they giving specifics, or are they just insulting you? If they're giving specifics, if they're talking about specific examples, specific behaviors, specific instances of something, it's probably pretty legitimate. If they're just saying you're a jerk or you're a butthead or whatever they're saying to you, probably not something you need to listen to. So constructive critics point to behavior. They point to examples. They don't speak broadly. They speak specifically. Haters attack identity, and those are people you don't have to spend a lot of time worrying about. So the action step here is to create 2 mental categories. One is a category where you're getting feedback from invested people. You want to analyze and listen to that and see if you agree. And if you do, what are you going to do about it? And 2, the second category is feedback from hostile strangers. Filter that quickly. They could still be right, but it's likely that they're just attacking you or lashing out or projecting or whatever. And you probably don't have to spend a lot of time on it. But not all voices, not all opinions, not all criticisms deserve equal access to your mind and your time and your resources. Tip number 4, convert criticism into a testable hypothesis. So instead of reacting emotionally, turn that criticism into an experiment. As an example, you interrupt people. Someone says you interrupt people a lot. Rather than defending and saying, I don't interrupt, test it for the next week. Consciously pause before responding. Like, work on it. That shifts criticism from an ego threat to a performance improvement. Maybe you interrupted in that particular conversation. I'm usually really good at not interrupting people, but there are times where I do it. And when I recognize that I've done it, I will actually apologize to the person that I've interrupted. There's times where I do it and don't recognize it because my emotions get the best of me. I'm human like everybody else. But on the whole, I'm probably better than most people at not interrupting people when they're talking. But that's a good example. Most people do it and don't even know that they're doing it. And if more than one person's pointing that out, you can test that hypothesis. Try it. That's a good example of one you could try and say, hey, that could be true, and I have control over it, so I'm going to work on this. So Carol Dweck, who you know we love, growth mindset instead of fixed mindset. Growth mindset says, I can learn, I can get better. I'm not limited by what I was born with, the skills I was born with. Shows that people who treat feedback as information rather than a judgment or a personal attack improve faster and experience less emotional distress. That's a good thing to have in your life. So if you learn to take things as feedback instead of a personal judgment, you can process them and work on them. So the action step here is ask yourself, how can I test whether this criticism is true? And then run a 7-day experiment, because data beats defensiveness every single time. All right, tip number 5 is reject personal attacks without internalizing them. There's a difference between critique and being a jerk or being cruel. Critique says, hey, you missed deadlines. An attack says, you're lazy and useless. Two very different things related to the same scenario, right? One is behavioral. The other one attacks your identity. When someone's attacking your identity, I wouldn't spend a lot of time on that. Psychological resilience research shows that people who maintain a strong self-concept of boundaries are less harmed by social rejection. They don't fuse insults with identity. They don't listen to people that attack them personally, but they do listen to constructive feedback or criticism that points out specific flaws or issues in their behavior. You can evaluate behavior without accepting character assassination. So you got to separate those two things. So the action step here is to mentally, when you're insulted, mentally translate, is there a behavior buried inside this? Are they trying to tell me something other than, hey, you're a jerk, whatever they're saying? If yes, try to extract that lesson, because there still could be a kernel of truth or some value to extract there. If it's not, just let it go. Like, move on. People aren't going to like you every once in a while, and that's the way life works, and that's okay. You don't have to carry emotional trash just because someone else chucks it on the ground. You don't got to pick it up and carry it around it with you. So filter the point from the way the message is delivered, especially when it's delivered in a personally insulting way. All right? So I think the takeaway here, guys, is if you want to grow as a person, if you want to be a mature adult, you're not going to avoid criticism. You're going to understand it. You're going to try to engage with it and test its validity to see if it's something you need to work on. Every successful person that you admire has learned to filter feedback instead of drowning in it. They don't ignore it, but they don't let it overwhelm them either. Your job is not to be liked. That's not the job in most instances. Your job is to improve yourself as a person. And sometimes that means hearing things you don't like to hear. Sometimes that means hearing things that you don't enjoy. Sometimes those things are valid and you need to work on those things if you want to become a better person. So the key here is to listen carefully, evaluate calmly, take what helps, and forget and leave alone what doesn't. That's emotional discipline in action. It's going to get you where you want to be in life. Okay? That's the episode for today. James puts it up right over here every day. Head over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All of our podcast episodes are available there. Links to our social media accounts are available there. We publish a newsletter every weekday you can subscribe to on our website. Make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe to our podcast, whatever platform you consume it on. More content like this coming, more interviews coming, the live stream Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern every week. More of those are coming. It's all good stuff that's going to help you build the life that you want. You don't want to miss any of it because it's really going to help you. So make sure you catch our next episode. We'll see you there.